Thank you. So Sam tells me that I can go ahead and announce that I am Andy Turenne, and I am a licensed practitioner from the Center for Spiritual Living in Greater Chico. And I welcome all of you and all of you who are watching this. The title of my talk today is Evolving from Illusion. I had all kinds of fancy stuff written on the top and a couple of little funnies, but this morning when I was doing my meditation, I was doing the Science of Mind 365, which I do every day. And the first paragraph of today's reading just kind of struck to what I was going to be talking about today. So I thought I would just read you just this little first paragraph as an intro to what we're going to be talking about today. Ernest Holmes writes, I have within myself, as I sit here, the sense that though my body is real, tangible, with definite form and outline, it is at the same time somehow made of living stuff that is saturated with God life. I know that whatever the stuff is of which my body is made, though it is called material, it must really be made of the one stuff and essence of which all things are made. Therefore, I sense within the very cells and tissue of my body an eternality. And this goes with what we're going to be talking about today. Because really, it's kind of, we look at everything, we look at appearances, and we consider everything as real and all of these things, and therein lies our problem. There's this guy called Anonymous. He wrote a lot of stuff. I look up and say, oh, Anonymous wrote this, so he's quite prolific. He says, he says, a time will come when you will not accept illusions and lies anymore. This is when you will begin to live your truth. Byron Katie, who I really, really like her stuff, her work. I like using her stuff. She says, life is pure projection. Are you feeling heaven or hell? So let's talk about that a little bit. So I say to you, point to the sun. I'm directionally challenged. I have no idea where it is. It's somewhere. So anyway, so I say to you, point to the sun, and you point to the sun. And then I look at you and say, yeah, but that's not where the sun is. And you say, yeah, it is. It's right there. And I say, well, no, that's an illusion. That's where the sun was 8.5 minutes ago, because it takes 186,000 miles per second for that light to reach the earth. It takes 8.5 minutes, and that's where it was. And so when you're looking at the moon, it's kind of the same thing. That's where it was 1.5 seconds ago. So as I'm looking at you, I'm not looking at who you are now, I'm looking at who you were a microsecond ago. Because like the moon, you're a reflection of light. And that light goes into my brain figures out what I'm trying to see and makes an image of you, and then I'm looking at you, and that's who you were just a little while ago. So everything is kind of illusion. It's even true when we get into the metaphysical realm, because as we teach here and as we talk here, we know that you and I were spiritual beings. We take on these spacesuits that we call bodies in order to function and interact with one another and on this earthly plane. Now the body feels solid and it looks solid, so we can touch ourselves and pinch over ourselves. But in reality, it's made up of atoms and molecules, electrons and neutrons and protons and all that. And these atoms, in all those parts, all of those electrons, protons, there's space in between them. And there's space between the atoms. And there's space between the cells that it creates and all that. And so as it turns out, we're 97% space. We really are. But it's like this thing here. This is the same way, but those atoms are so close together that everything feels solid. In addition to that, the bodies that we have are disposable. When we're through with this with this experience that we have now, we return to source. Now, we don't really return to source because source, we're always in the divine presence. There's only one presence, and we're part of it. And so the spacesuits get set aside, and we just continue on as spirit. Because there's only that one presence. In fact, we are just a bundle of energy with all of these atoms and everything else. And so is the universe. It's just a whole bunch of energy, and it's all doing all this vibrating stuff. And this is when we're aligned with one another and we're aligned with the universe, life is good. So I'm going to shift gears for just a moment, because deep in the recesses of our subconsciousness comes these memories. And we have these memories, and sometimes we don't even know where they came from. Now, they could have come, do they come from our childhood? They come from whatever, if they're previous incarnations. Who knows? They're memories. Sometimes they kind of creep out and they play into our lives. Sometimes they're pretty phenomenal. When you take a child, a 3-year-old child, who can speak a foreign language and never been exposed to it, or a child who can play Mozart and never had been taken a music lesson or sat at a keyboard before, you have to wonder, where does that come from? So, and it's been documented, because there are some documented things where people will have a traumatic head injury or brain injury, and then all of a sudden they can do music they never did before, they can do mathematics, they can do all kinds of things phenomenal things that they've never been able to do before. The medical profession calls that acquired savant syndrome. They continue to research it, but they really don't know how, they can't really define it and have any idea where this comes from. What we do know is that somewhere deep in the recesses of our subconscious mind are these long buried memories. Sometimes these subconscious memories may not be so positive. They are subtle and they creep into our everyday life. They may manifest themselves as inexplicable moments of fear or feelings of lack or loss, and we really can't put our finger on where they came from. They may show up as unresolved issues from some other time, but we can't really identify exactly what happens. Now, our rational brain says, well, this is just crazy. I'm just going to ignore that. I don't know where it comes from. However, in our emotional brain, and it's coming from the subconscious, so oftentimes we're not even aware of what's going on, and we're wondering why things are not going so right, and we're playing these things out. We're working on these false beliefs. Now, we've been taught so many things, so many illusions, and really that's what they are. They're illusions. So many things, and these illusions that we have been taught since we came out of the womb is race consciousness. Is, you get, other people get to put all that stuff on you as you're growing up and as you're developing. So, some examples of that is that disease is hereditary. You get a cold if you're standing in a draft. Let's see, wealth comes from work, or your job, or anything else is your source. Bad habits are going to cause all kinds of disease. Oh, medicines are going to cure you for sure. All kinds of things. Unconsciously, we buy into these beliefs, and we pass them down as truths to our children or anyone who's going to listen to them. As a result, the interesting thing is we start arguing for our limitations. High blood pressure, whatever, it's high blood pressure, cancer, alcoholism, well, that's all part of the family. That's, it's inherited. Oh, my poor wretched life is preordained, whatever. I'm not smart enough, rich enough, tall enough, short enough, whatever it is. And too often we buy into those things and we come to believe it because they've been told to us since we were children. Now, if we're lucky, something or somebody will spark a curiosity, And if we think about it intelligently, we come to the conclusion that at some point that those things are just not true. They're just pure BS, as we always say, our belief system. Intuitively, we just know that they're not true. So how do we break this cycle of taking in this information, processing it, and how do we break this cycle of false belief? When I was 6 months old, I had spinal meningitis, and I was not expected to live. And if I would live, I would be crippled or mentally ill for the rest of my life. Obviously, I'm not crippled. So, yeah, in 1942, there were a few survivors of infant spinal meningitis. So you don't have to do the math. I'm 73. So anyway, even at 6 months old, there was something in me, something that didn't believe that you don't survive this thing here. And here I am. And another part of my childhood, when I was about 9 years old, I believed in, well, I was taught by somebody, obviously, that you play with frogs, you get warts. You hear that? So, yeah, at 9 years old, I had warts. I had warts on my hands and stuff like that. So one of my sisters said to me, I know this woman that can heal that. She has this healing powers. We're going to go see her tomorrow. So the next day, my sister takes me to this tenement house someplace, and we go find this woman's apartment. And so we go in there, and it's a nice elderly lady. I mean, when you're 9 years old, anyway, that's what I guess. So she said, true. So she said to my sister in French, you can go, I'll take care of him. So she calls me over and tells me to sit down at the kitchen table. And we sit at the kitchen table, and she takes a box of kitchen matches, wood matches, and she lights one match and she blows it out, and she rubs it on one of my warts, and then she puts it on the table. And then she does it again with another one. And with each one that she does, she lays it on the table, and she makes these little crosses across the table like this. And when she's all done, she takes my hands and she starts praying. And I think she's praying. She's mumbling anyway, whatever she's doing. So, I thought it was a little strange. But then again, I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school for 11 years, so I believe in almost anything. So being a kid, after we're all done, I go out and I start playing and I forget all about it. So a day or two later, my sister calls me over and she says, let me see your hands. So I show her my hands, and what's it gone? Everything's gone. Everything's disappeared. So I'm thinking, oh my God, this is like some kind of miracle. And my sister says, wow, that's amazing. But the interesting thing is that, this was the 50s, and I don't know where you grew up, but I grew up in very ethnic neighborhoods, and everybody, there was all different kinds of people who had all kinds of healing powers. And, so I don't know the psychology behind it, or I don't necessarily understand all of that stuff. All I know is that it worked, and I believe that. Now, this is really the power of mind. And that story, and not just story, I had throughout my life. This has been going on. All kinds of things that have come to me, and it's been demonstrated countless times. And I'll save the other stories for another time. But suffice it to say that in all of my miraculous encounters, I knew nothing about science of mind. I knew nothing about the mind-body connection. I lived in ignorant bliss. Since those and several other events that happened in my 73 years, I've learned and came to believe that in my subconscious there was and continues to be this core belief that I'm special. I'm perfect, I'm whole, I'm complete. I had no idea where that came from. When I was 6 months old, when I was 9 years old, when I was 20 years old. But I was very fortunate that it was in me. So taking all of these, I just thought I lived a charmed life. And then taking loads of science of mind classes and self-help classes and just through living experiences, I came to the conclusion that you and I, we're born fully evolved. Truly, we are fully evolved. All that's in the universe is in us. I mean, that's how it is. You know, we have this innate knowledge of the universe, and as we continue to grow and to learn and peel away those layers of illusion, all of the doubt and ignorance falls away from us, and we need to be expressing our true being. We are all special, each one of us. It can't be otherwise. We are the center of the universe. We are each individualized manifestations of that one, the creator, that I choose to call God. And in its infinite desire to express itself, it created each one of us in its likeness, in its being. We're the center of God. We live and we have our being in this thing called life. And that life is God. We're endowed with divine intelligence. Everything we ever wanted to know, or need to know, is already known to us. We need to only peel away those layers of illusion. Those layers of illusion have been put on us by the human race. You know, from the time we're born, our caregivers, our teachers, our parents, society has buried us in their stuff. Some of that stuff is good, a lot of it not so good. And some of it even comes from, like I say, from a previous incarnation? I don't know. Nobody's come back to tell me about it. So how do we remove these layers of illusion? You know, Michelangelo once said that every block of stone has inside of it a statue, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover that. And you and I are the sculptors. So how do we remove that? Well, we chip away at everything that is not perfection. You know, beauty, love, God. We probe and we ask questions. And every time that I'm feeling something negative that doesn't feel like love, I have to ask myself, you know, is this true? Do I want this in my life? Where does that come from? So I can, when I own it and I'm looking at it, then I can decide whether it serves me any longer, or whether I can just let it go. And then inch by inch and piece by piece, I keep chipping away at the illusion. I'm not all there yet, but I'm working at it, and I'm a long way from where I was. So I was fortunate in my early life that something in me, in my subconscious, was powerful enough to overcome some pretty incredible health issues. That something is still there. But like the rest of us, once in a while, I forget who I am. But I can refocus much quicker now. That's the whole idea of taking classes and learning about myself. Now, do I get concerned when I have an occasional health issue or problem? Hell, I'm 73 years old. Of course I do. You know, at my age, you know, in my head, if I'm not in the right place, you know, a sniffle can look like looming disaster for me. So, but I've learned to not focus on it and treat for myself or get treatment, to reconnect with that perfection of God that I am. And speaking of age, I've had to work on the whole age issue for this past year. I've worked on it quite a bit with my mentor. Now, I love life and I love my body, but I want my body to keep up with what I want to do. So, you know, and as a result of my spiritual work, I've come to love my body and be grateful for how well it has served me through all of these years and will continue to do so. So when I wake up with an occasional ache or pain in the morning, I've decided that they're growing pains because I'm still growing. So I can let that go. So here's what I'd like you to take away from today's lesson. First of all, that truly life is illusion. It's appearance. We bring ourselves and whatever our judgments are to what we're seeing. So you, as a physical body, are not even real. You are a bundle of energy. You are merely a reflection of light. What you appear to be, rich, poor, healthy, sick, is not who you are. You are a spiritual being. You are a brilliant manifestation of God expressing, perfect, whole, and complete. As metaphysicians, we need always to look beyond appearances to the truth of who we are. We are spirit in these spacesuit bodies living this cosmic comedy that we call the human experience. The spirit you are, that I am, is always and ever perfect and complete, exactly as God created us. This is what you need to focus on, no matter what is going on in your life. Second, you need to know that it is ego that drags you through the mud of the illusion. When you're witnessing something or someone or something is pushing your buttons, you need to remember that it's ego telling you that this is real, this is true, when it is not true. You need to remember who you are, that you are spirit, that you are perfect, whole, and complete, like God created you. Finally, here's something that may help you to understand what Ernest Holmes was teaching. Now, many of you know Bruce Lipton or have heard of him. He's the developmental biologist, known for teaching that that through your belief system you can change your genes and your DNA. He uses a lot of quantum physics now when he's speaking. And in quantum physics, there was an experiment that whenever the vibration of the energy mass is observed, that it collapses, it changes, and it collapses into form. Put another way, everything is energy, and when you observe it, it collapses into form. Dr. Carolyn spoke of this on Mother's Day about Ernest Holmes. And he says on page 70 of The Science of Mind that everything that spirit thinks must take form. He goes on to explain that the thought, idea, is the seed planted in the soil of the subjective mind, medium, and it knows only to create form. In other words, thought collapses into form. Now, he got this from Dr. Troward, from Judge Troward, Thomas Troward. So we need to guard our thoughts like we tend to our garden. And I love this quote. This quote. One of my favorite people when I got into religious sciences, I used to love to listen to Kennedy shows. And I love it when he says this. He says, "Now let me make this abundantly clear. An occasional thought of illness won't give you cancer, just like a fleeting thought of being rich won't make you a millionaire." This is true. But I'm talking about stopping that stinking thinking that goes on in our minds. The one that says, "Oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not very lucky. I'm not smart enough." Those ideas, those beliefs, those illusions that somebody has put on us that we keep going back to. We need to make sure that we're not planting those in the fertile soil of the soul. They become form. So treating for abundance and focusing on how much I don't have is not going to bring me prosperity. Treating for good health and focusing on how bad my body is not going to endear me to wellness. So in summary, let's think about this. We are fully evolved spiritual beings, always have been and we always will be. For most of us, from the time we're born and our parents and caregivers, society put all this stuff on us, and we raise consciousness. But we know that in truth, as evolved beings, that we are spirit, we are energy, we are individualized expressions of the one power, the one presence, the one mind, and the intelligence of the universe. We are perfect, whole, and complete, exactly as God created us. In the one mind, we know that God always says yes to what we believe. So we need to watch our thoughts, because we know that the thoughts that we impress into that subjective mind become form. So I'm going to give you some homework right now. I'm going to give you an affirmation that I know for some of you, it may be a bit uncomfortable at first. But I know that if you do this every day for a week, you will notice a change in your life. I guarantee you that. So what I'd like you to do for a week is every day stand in front of a mirror and you look at it with your eyes open. Yeah, that helps. And every day you have to repeat this at least 3 times. And you say it until you believe it, even if you have to fake it until you make it. So, are you ready for this? This is what I want you to do. So we're going to say this 3 times, and I want you to repeat it with me, okay? So please say with me. I am the full expression of the perfection, beauty, and love of God. I am the full expression of the perfection, beauty, and love of God. And one more time. I am the full expression of the perfection, beauty, and love of God. This is your truth. Namaste. So it is.